Finally, it's here. A 400cc Pulsar had been long overdue. When Bajaj launched the Dominar back in 2016, we knew there will be more products with this engine. A Pulsar, certainly. What we didn't know is that Bajaj will take 8 years to come up with this. The Pulsar NS400Z is late to the party. However, it's trying its best to disrupt the segment with an incredible price tag of 1.85 lakh ex-showroom, which by the way is introductory, and a great amount of features.
Now, the NS400Z gets the same engine as the Dominar, but some of its cycle parts, dimensions and geometry are similar to the NS200. So in theory, it should have the punchy performance of the Dominar and the agility and lightness of the NS200.
But is that the case in the real world? And why is it so affordable? Is there a catch? A lot for me to answer today, and to do that I'm not only riding the NS400Z on the streets but also at Bajaj's testing track in Chakan. It's going to be a long and interesting day. Let's get going. Don't stop. Blah, blah, blah.
At first glance, the biggest Pulsar might look identical to the smaller NS200. However, give it a scrutinizing look and the differences are recognizable. The front fascia of the NS400 looks more dramatic with prominent Z-shaped LED DRLs flanking a round projector headlamp. While the fuel tank is the same as the 200, the extensions are sharper and the radiator cowl is bulkier. Plus, the tail section is marginally sleeker, the front forks are chunkier golden units, and the rear tire hugger looks more minimalistic with its mounting points only on the left side. In a nutshell, it doesn't really look bigger than the NS200 but has a fresher and smarter appeal to it. The overall quality levels of the bike are acceptable for the most part. The components are sturdily put together, the paint finish is nice and there aren't any noticeable uneven panel gaps. However, the quality of switchgear feels substandard and the buttons on the left side of the handlebar require some effort to operate and aren't very tactile. I also noticed a bit of rusting on the bolts of the handlebar. These aren't major issues but rather areas of improvement. This is the most feature-loaded motorcycle to have come out of Bajaj's stable. It gets a ride-by-wire throttle system along with 4 riding modes, including road, rain, sport and off-road. Each of these modes offer varying levels of ABS intervention and different throttle responses. The power and torque output is also altered to some extent. Moreover, there is a traction control system which can be switched off. The NS400Z also has the most data-intensive instrument cluster among all Bajaj bikes. The color LCD dash gets a small secondary display on the right side, which can be used to select ride modes and TC setting, activate Bluetooth, use navigation, alter brightness, refer to trip details, access lap timer, and other miscellaneous data. The primary display shows all the essential info like a tachometer, speedometer, gear position, fuel gauge, activated ride mode, fuel level, clock, and odo. Sitting under this cluster is a USB charging port, while the clutch and brake levers are 5-step adjustable. Not to forget, the lighting setup is full LED.
Now with a seat height of 805 mm, the Pulsar NS400 is quite accessible. So even if you are shorter than my 5 feet 11 inch stature, you can easily hop on the motorcycle and get your feet on the ground. As you can see, I'm flat footing. Even if you're shorter, you will be tiptoeing a slide, but it's still manageable. Now once you're on the motorcycle, you sense that there's a good balance between upright, comfortable riding position and slight sportiness. But I would have liked slightly more sportier seating ergos, because while this handlebar is wide and you have to crouch just a little more crouched riding position would have given it a more involving riding position. But there is a good amount of space on the seat and you can move back on the seat and grab onto the fuel tank properly. These knee recesses on the tank and this tapering of the seat actually allows you to properly grip the fuel tank. There's one grouse I have with the overall experience that you have when you're seated on the motorcycle, and that's with the heft and bulk of the motorcycle. it doesn't actually feel like a 400cc motorcycle because the fuel tank, it's the same 12-liter fuel tank like the Pulsar NS200, and these fuel tank extensions are also similarly wide as the NS200. Even this cockpit area, while the display is bigger than the NS200 or 160, still the overall feel is that of a very compact and small motorcycle. That might be good thing for some people who like their motorcycles to be compact and more playful, but for a 400cc motorcycle, I feel some more mass would have added more substance to the motorcycle. Now let me give you a quick overview of what you get as an hardware package with the Pulsar NS400Z. Now the 373cc liquid cooled single cylinder engine is the same as the Dominar 400. The fueling, the tuning and the power and torque output numbers are also the same at 39.5 bhpa and 35 Newton meters. You also get the same 6-speed gearbox with an assist and slipper clutch. What has Bajaj changed though is the sprocketing for this motorcycle. It's a minor difference. This one gets 15 and 46 teeth sprocket at the front and rear respectively, whereas the Dominar gets 15 and 45 teeth sprocket. Now what that helps with is better roll-on acceleration and better acceleration from the standstill. Now similarly, the chassis is also identical to the Dominar 400. Now this is the same chassis as the NS200, but there have been more reinforcements to accommodate and hold that bigger and engine with more displacement. What's new for the Pulsar NS400 are the suspension. 43mm big piston upside down forks at the front, and you get 6-step preload adjustable monoshock at the rear. The swing arm is new, the subframe is new, and the brakes are different from any other Pulsar, but the wheels are identical. If you look at the design, identical to the NS200. Now what has Bajaj saved by doing all of this is cost as well as weight. Now if you look at the swing arm, this is a more conventional box type swing arm as against Dominar's steel type swing arm, and the Dominar gets diamond cut alloy wheels, whereas this gets more conventional alloy wheels like the NS200. Now so Bajaj has saved weight significantly. This one stands at 174 kg curb, which is 18 kgs lighter than the Dominar 400, but it's also 14 kgs heavier than the NS200. So to retain the overall lightness and nimbleness and the agility, just like the NS200, Bajaj has shortened the wheelbase by 20 mm as compared to the Pulsar NS200, and it's also significantly shorter than the Dominar, and the rake angle has been steepened by close to 0.8 degrees as compared to the NS200. Now that's what you get as an overall package. How is it out on the road? Let's get going.
The Pulsar NS400 is a likeable motorcycle on the road. The engine feels a bit mellow till 4000 rpm but starts pulling spiritedly beyond that. The sweet spot lies between 4 to 7000 rpm, where the motorcycle feels lively and overtaking vehicles in the city is effortless. Even on the highway, you can do 100 to 120 kmph without the engine feeling strained. The throttle response is direct, gear shifts are slick, and the clutch can be operated with a single finger. However, it's not a smooth engine. Our test bike felt buzzy until 5000 rpm, followed by the vibrations reducing till 7000 rpm and coming back and staying till its red line of 10,000 rpm. Overall, it felt more vibey at city speeds than on the highway. Trying different ride modes revealed that the difference in throttle response and ABS intervention is noticeable only when you switch from sport to rain mode. Although ride modes give you bragging rights, in our books, they don't make a lot of difference or sense on bikes this small. On the streets, it feels like a typical NS in terms of handling. It switches lanes with minimal effort, and flicking your way through traffic is enjoyable and quick. Similarly, the brakes do a decent job of shedding speed with good bite from the front disc, while the rear brake is very progressive. The front could do with better feel though. The ride quality is slightly on the stiffer side but not uncomfortable or jarring by any stretch. Minor undulations are ironed out cleanly, while the bigger and sharper hurdles demand you to go a bit easy. Even on the highway, where you encounter slight dips and crests, the bike feels planted.
Now, while the engine is identical to the Dominar 400, if you notice, this gets an underbelly exhaust unlike the Dominar's two-port exhaust, which gives it a slightly different and distinctive exhaust sound. And that is also one of the distinguishing factors over the NS200, because when you crank up the engine, it sounds different, and so it does while flying by. Let me give you a listen and you decide whether it sounds nice or not. You let us know in the comments.
At the track, where we got a brief 15-minute session, the strong mid-range performance of the engine proved to be a boon. Corner exits were quick, even if I was in a gear higher. On the straight, it was impressive to see it cross 160 kmph despite Bajaj claiming a top speed of 154 kmph. The handling was a mixed bag. The steering response was sharp, the chassis felt communicative, and getting the bike to turn was effortless. However, the rear wallowed a bit around tight corners while being leaned over. Also, the feedback from the front tire wasn't great and it robbed me of some confidence. These things could be due to multiple factors such as the tire pressure being too high, the track being dusty, or the rear sag not being set up appropriately for track use. Having said that, the bike never did anything scary or funny. The brake showed some sign of fading during the last lap, but it wasn't significant. The bite from the front rotor stayed to acceptable levels. What really worked in my favor was the accommodating nature of the bike. I could move back on the seat, lock my knees to the fuel tank snugly, courtesy of the bike's midsection being slim. Even the cornering clearance is good, and I never managed to scrape the pegs.
Now, to conclude the story of the Bajaj Pulsar NS400Z, I think it's quite a likable motorcycle but can improve on certain fronts. Now, it's a good city motorcycle because of strong mid-range from the engine, the gear shifts are slick, the clutch is super light, and the ride quality is decent, although a little on the stiffer side, but it's not obnoxious. The tire grip is decent, you feel in a very comfortable riding position. Even after spending the entire day, I didn't feel the cushioning to be inadequate. Even the brakes are nice, so for city, it's a great motorcycle, I feel. Even on the highway, if you're riding it at 110 kmph where you sit at 5000 rpm, the motorcycle feels comfortable, and if you're in 6th gear, to overtake you just need to drop a cog and you can overtake bigger vehicles quite easily. On the racetrack though, the experience wasn't very confidence inspiring because the front end feel was lacking and the rear felt a bit squishy. The front end lacking feel was because of mainly the tires are not radial. The rear section, the rear tire is radial, but the front is not, so that plays part here. But if you don't go too hardcore around corners, this motorcycle can handle quite well. Now, there are three major issues I have with this bike. First one is the inconsistency in vibrations. Under 5,000-6,000 rpm, you get the motorcycle feels buzzy, the handlebar and the foot pegs are vibrating. After that, the vibrations sort of disappear. But as you reach 7,000 rpm or 8,000 rpm, vibrations come back. So that's one issue, and I feel the brakes could have been better and the quality could be better, especially the switches on the left side switch gear. The 4 switches through which you toggle through different menus and options, you have to press them really hard to get them working. And the third thing, and I think a lot of people will agree with me on this, is the design. I think this design should have been evolved more substantially. In first glance, it looks like the Pulsar NS200 or 160 or 125 if you will. So I think it should have had a slightly different stance, more muscle around the front section, the fuel tank area, because although Bajaj has done to change the styling and make it swankier than the NS200 and the rest of the NS lineup, but I still think it should have had more distinctive appeal in terms of visually. Now, as for the pricing, that's where Bajaj has really hit it out of the park. With a price tag of rupees 1.85 lakh ex-showroom, that price tag overshadows all the niggles I just mentioned, and it comes across as a very, very value for money proposition. Now there are certain aspects which are yet to be judged, like the fuel efficiency, the ride quality. We need to judge that better, and we need to tour on this motorcycle to really tell you whether it's a nice touring motorcycle. So for that, you'll have to wait for our road test review. Till then, this is Anuj. You're watching BikeWale, signing off for now.